Hi Libra, welcome to your March reading. All right, tomorrow Saturn moves into Pisces. It'll spend about 75 days there. And it'll move back into Aquarius, back into a fellow air sign. It'll be there for about 200 days. Then it'll move back into Pisces. So Saturn will go to Pisces. It'll figure out what it doesn't know yet. It'll go down into the depths. It'll figure out what it doesn't know, and it'll bring it back to Aquarius. And so the parting gifts that we get when Saturn is done and moves on, I have a feeling those parting gifts actually show up in June, but you see the beginning of them, the roots of that wealth and good luck this month. Now, because this is kind of a long drawn out thing, and because Saturn is very much the one who likes to be in control, might be a good idea for you in March to just relax a little bit. Maybe focus on the material aspects of things and let your emotional life breathe and not exert so much control over it. It's just a thought. Now, why do I say this? Well, your astrology for March points to you having to learn the hard way that not everything can be the way that you want it to be, even if you work really hard for it. So, because we're talking specifically about emotions and romance and the connections between people, it is a great idea to focus this energy on your business, on your work, on finding a better job, on having some important conversations with yourself about money, right? It's better to spend this energy controlling something and planning something that is in your control, that you can actually control, instead of exerting this influence where you want to, which is in your emotional life. You're even thinking, that maybe if I just threaten to either leave or disrupt the situation, leave the job, leave the person, leave the agreement, leave the group chat, whatever it is, that it will show people that I'm hurting, that I need more attention, that I need more love. Unfortunately, in March, because everyone is going through an upheaval, I don't think anyone has the time to be that nuanced and read it the way that you wish they would. And so you have to be a bit more obvious. Sorry. Right? Because everyone's having some pretty unpleasant realizations. So even if they do want to be there for you and they understand that you need a little more attention at this time, they're also dealing with stuff that's, there's upheaval in everyone's lives with this Saturn transit. So it's hard. It's hard for them to be as present for you as you would like. That's not a character flaw. That's not them being bad to you. That's just them being preoccupied. But it will feel like it's personal. It will feel like it's a slight, and it's just because it's you and they don't want to be helpful to you or pay attention to you. And it's not that at all. People are just going through it. Saturn is a powerful energy. It makes us deeply uncomfortable because it forces us to see what we willfully want to ignore. And obviously there are reasons why we want to ignore things, right? Now, you have some unpleasant realizations of your own. There is a process that's already been kickstarted on the 3rd where who you are in a romantic relationship has come under the microscope. If you've been really private up until now about your romantic relationships, this could feel really weird because people feel like they can see behind who you're pretending to be to who you are. And that's a very uncomfortable energy, especially, when you're feeling it yourself. When you're looking at yourself throughout March in the context of romance and love, you're having these moments of like, I did that? Did I say that? Did I? Because how do I put it? You've changed, but it's not an obvious change, and it's not something that you plan to do. This is not purposeful. So in many ways, you asking yourself who you are in a romance is you getting to know yourself again. You know who you used to be in a romance, but I don't think that has anything to do with how you'd be now, regardless of when your last romance was. And this is an interesting time for this energy to come up because there seems to be so much pain around it. And this is pain that you've been putting away. So of course it's being compounded because it's not being addressed. It's not being tended to and healed. It's just festering. It's rotting. It's getting worse because that's what hiding allows for. It allows for that kind of gunk to build up. It relies on that. So when Saturn shows you the things you've done and said, etc., that are uncomfortable, that make you wonder, who was I in romance? What was I doing? What was I thinking? Indulge that. Of course, it's natural. It's probably pretty satisfying, but don't get stuck there. Move forward. Well, I'm glad I'm not that now. Oof, I'm glad I can see through that. Doesn't matter if it was last week. In the Virgo reading, we were talking about Vanilla Sky and that one line where he says to her, to Penelope Cruz, I used to be a guy that just snowboarded through my life. And she says, when did that change? And he says, about 5 minutes ago. And she doesn't skip a beat. She's not surprised by it. She's not taken aback because he said it like it happened a while ago. Without skipping a beat, she says, every passing moment is a chance to turn it all around. And it's in that moment that he truly, up until then, there's been an infatuation and there's been quite a lot of like good-natured flirting, innocent flirting. But it's in that moment that he truly falls in love with her because he sees his redemption in her. Only someone that can believe something so innocent, only someone super innocent, pure-hearted could even believe that. And he is the picture of, the jaded rich guy. So for someone to believe that he is worthy of redemption when he is probably the one that has tasted all the sin, of course, that's really appealing. That means that this girl could actually give him a fair shot at being a human because she believes that whatever he's been until now doesn't define who he could be. That's what she told him in that moment. You are worthy of redemption. You can be redeemed. And it enamored her. It enamored him to her. Like, she's so full of hope that it can happen, that you can change, that you can be different, right? So when you see these things about yourself, and some of them, yeah, they're not so pleasant, instead of getting stuck in the upset, instead of being embarrassed that you're not perfect, instead of being ashamed that you're not perfect, all natural reactions for you, when you get past all of that, just remember, every passing minute is a chance to turn it all around. But there's a trick. You have to change. The opportunity is there every moment. Right now, right now, right now. But you have to change. So how are we supposed to change if we don't even know how far we've come? And that really is what Saturn's doing right now. It's starting to measure the roads. How far have we come? And how far do we have to go? And who do you want to go on this journey with? How are you supposed to make the right decisions about that if you're not first honest with yourself about how you are with others? Or how you allow them to be with you? Two types of Libras. The ones who exert their will and make everyone around them uncomfortable as they sit and watch you get your way, right? Or the other ones, the ones who never want to get in the way, the ones who will take on everything you need them to do so as to ensure that they never get in the way. A tyrant or a doormat is the toxicity scale, I think. So wherever you find yourself on that scale and you're having these, embarrassing realizations about how you were just a few years ago, a few months ago, a few weeks ago, don't get stuck there. Move forward. It's okay. Everyone has been that embarrassing. Everyone has been that person. Whatever you come up with in your head, you're like, oh my God, that's terrible. I didn't even realize I was being that way. It's okay. Whatever it is, we've all done it. We've all done it. Don't worry. Now, if you're not having this revelatory moment, if you're not having a month of epiphanies, you may just be in shutdown control mode. I'm just going to try to control everything. I need this all to go back to the way it was because I can't function like this. I'm just going to do as much damage control as I can to make people believe what I want them to believe. And if I need to, I'll say what I need to say and pretend to do whatever I need to pretend to do to emotionally blackmail them into giving me what I want. And if you try it, it will not work. Doesn't matter what ace you think you have in your pocket, it's not going to work. Do not try to bully people, blackmail people, even to try to help them, but from a place where you're coming from pity. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not the time. And even if you were to persuade or try to persuade people to do what you want, and by that I mean force, and diplomatically force people to do what you want, instead of people acquiescing, what you'll get now is a reputation for wanting too much or asking for the impossible. And I think that's because this is not a moment about anyone else. It's kind of like trying to get anyone who would get in your face right now out of the way. Because Venus is moving into Taurus and it meets the North Node and Uranus, right? So there's this like intense healing emotional time that seems very much a solitary thing. You seem to be mulling over this water sign's effect on you and whatever happened between you. It's still very much in your mind. It still surprisingly feels like the one that came closest to being perfect. Whatever it is, it was some paragon that you reached with or around this person, and so it's bringing all that back. But trying to grasp onto that and trying to get that back, whatever it used to be, is a mistake. And trying to emotionally or otherwise blackmail people is also a mistake. Let's put it this way. Whether it's a slight amount or a very large amount of control, wherever you try to exert your will outside of yourself on others, it will turn on you. And that makes me feel like you're being trained for something. You're being trained to, keep your patience. But why? So Venus moves into Taurus and you have this intense healing time, right? All your emotions are like very close to the surface and you may start blaming yourself. Like I said, it's all my fault, but it's not your fault. Do not go down that road. And you know what? If you can keep yourself, I'm going to say it in a way that it sounds like mean, but I mean it for real. If you can keep yourself from being too sad and be outside a little bit, despite how much you want to control things, you might unexpectedly meet somebody. Somebody very interesting. Somebody who can see what's going on with you, see past the facade. See past the mask. So when this Venus enters Taurus, it makes sense that someone would be able to see past your mask because it's that same Venusian energy that you have. So it like gives you away a little bit. But don't get so swept up with the romance of it that you lower your standards. And we'll talk about that more in the extended. We'll talk about the lowering your standard thing. We'll talk extensively about Saturn in Pisces, what it does to your mental to try uncomfortable things. We'll also talk about the ego and evolution and how they seem to be at odds. And then we'll talk about work and money and this burning question, Libra, that comes up again and again in this entire Saturn in Pisces period. Now, later until 2026, people will be asking very seriously, not tongue-in-cheek, are you nice for real? Now, if that's not a question you can answer right now, that's okay. But it is a question that's going to be asked. Okay? All right. That extended, there's 3 ways that you can get your hands on the extended now. There is a instant link. That's the first thing you see. Then there's a Vimeo link. That's the second thing. And then there's a Patreon sub where you get videos, live videos, early videos. This is their early and the extended. And that's the last option. So those are all in the info box. I love you. I've been taking a minute to like take in and then just think, so I'm sorry about the long pauses. It hasn't happened in any of the other videos. I just feel like if I were to explain myself for a moment, I feel like this reading is called The Hard Things. Like the hard things that I have to say to you, the hard things that you have to hear from Saturn, the hard things that we are going to go through, but they all have to do with gaining knowledge of self. So even though they're difficult, I can't help but be optimistic, but I don't want to sound too enthusiastic. But at the same time, like, do you realize how good this is for you guys? Because there is a lack of self-awareness sometimes with you guys. And it's like painful because you're so sweet and you're so nice and then you don't be knowing it. And it's like, you know, if you just knew that sometimes when you do this or when you do that, it's like, you know, it's like, but it's like little things, okay? It's little things. Like it's harmless. But do you want me to give you an example? It's harmless stuff. I'll give you a funny example, so don't take it seriously because I want you to laugh about this. I don't want you to get too in your head about this. But it's like simple stuff. It's like Bella Hadid's a Libra, right? Okay. So Bella Hadid does this thing where even though she's American and she's been brought up in America, when she feels like the spotlight is on her or when she feels like it's her time to talk, for a little like extra confidence, I think this is how Libras do it. Like it's like an armor thing. She'll put on like this affected kind of like French Lebanese accent. It's very subtle. It's not a big deal. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. We all love her. Libra queen. Like no big deal, right? But it's like you're going to be noticing stuff like that about yourself. No one else is coming out of the woodwork and being like, oh, you do this. And it's not, but we don't care. We're like, oh, she's beautiful. She's cute. It's wonderful. It's kind of adorable. It is what it is, right? But when you start noticing these kind of icks that you're going to think are icks about yourself, when that stuff starts to get put in front of you and then Pluto moves into Aquarius, wonderful. So now Pluto in an air sign, right? So you, me, and Aquarius are all getting this energy. Then you're going to start to see all these things that you maybe are like, oh man, I don't want to know that I do that. Like, but there it is. So I don't want you to think that it's going to all be like these huge things that are really bad. No, it's just hard things, you know, because like every sign has their weaknesses. Certain things are just more difficult for some signs. When things get close to hurting your vanity, you know, it gets you a little bit, but that's okay. Don't worry about it. As long as you have a sense of humor about these transits and you don't lower your standards during this time, you'll be cool. It's about maintaining a certain perspective now, as the chaos approaches. So we'll talk about that in the extended at length. I love you. Saturn in Pisces tomorrow. Oh, and tonight on Instagram, we're doing a full moon live.